All right, let's jump right in. Today we're doing a deep dive into stock manipulation. Peeling back the layers and exposing these tactics that are designed to, well, illegally influence stock prices for a profit. You might think, hey, this is a Wall Street problem, doesn't really affect me, but honestly, it impacts everyone. Think about it. A healthy stock market relies on trust, right? And transparency. When that's compromised, the effects can ripple through the entire economy.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And you know what's especially interesting? The sheer variety of these methods. Our sources outline a whole bunch of manipulation types, each with their own kind of unique fingerprint. So we've got pump and dumps, bear raids, churning, quote stuffing, front running, wash trading, and even, get this, outright falsified financials. It's a whole, rogues gallery of deceptive practices.
Wow, it's kind of mind-blowing. Okay, so let's start with, I guess, what's probably the most well-known tactic, the pump and dump. How does that even work?
Okay, imagine this. Someone's got their eye on a low-price stock, often, a penny stock, something easy to manipulate.
Sure.
And they start spreading basically misleading information. This could be, I don't know, fake news articles, or they could even orchestrate these social media campaigns, all designed to create buzz, right? Generate hype and drive up that demand.
Gotcha, so it's all artificial.
Yeah, exactly. So as unsuspecting investors see this, they jump on board, right? They think they're getting in early. The price climbs. But it's all artificially inflated, just manufactured hype.
Okay, so they pump up the price, get everyone excited, and then what?
Then comes the dump. See, the manipulators, they've accumulated a ton of shares. At that low price, before all the hype, now they sell off everything. At the peak of that inflated price, boom, quick profit. The price then obviously plummets. And all those people who were late to the party, they're left holding these basically worthless stocks.
It sounds, I don't know, almost predatory, like they're preying on people who maybe don't know better.
It absolutely can be. And that's why awareness is so crucial. Always, always do your own research before investing. And be really wary of any stock that has a sudden and unexplained surge in price, especially if it's accompanied by a lot of, questionable promotional activity.
Right. Like if it seems too good to be true. Okay, so if pump and dumps are about inflating prices, then bear raids are the opposite. Yeah, like trying to drive prices down.
Exactly. Bear raids involve what's called short selling,
Right.
which basically means betting that a stock's price is going to fall.
Okay, but that's not illegal in itself.
No,
Okay.
no, not at all. Short selling can be a legitimate investment strategy. The problem with bear raids is they go beyond just analyzing a company, right, and making a legitimate investment decision. Bear raiders actively try to sabotage a company's image.
Oh, I see. So instead of relying on facts and analysis, they're spreading negativity, rumors, maybe even outright lies to make that stock tank.
Precisely. They might spread misinformation about the company's financial health, maybe plant some negative news stories, or launch these coordinated attacks on social media to scare off investors, drive that price down.
Wow. It's almost like a smear campaign, but in the financial world.
That's a really good analogy. And, the consequences, they can be really devastating, not only for the company and their investors, of course, but potentially for the wider market if it triggers a loss of confidence.
Right, because it starts to undermine that trust we were talking about. Now, let's maybe shift gears a bit. Talk about some tactics that might be less familiar to the average investor. Our sources, they refer to churning, quote, stuffing, and front running as insidery tactics. What exactly does that mean?
So these tactics, they exploit loopholes. And we call information asymmetry. Basically situations where one party has way more information than another.
Ah, okay.
And this often involves people with, privileged access to market data or, the inner workings of exchanges.
So it's less about public manipulation, like we saw with the pump and dump, and more about taking advantage of your position.
Exactly. It's like rigging the game in your favor.
Right.
So, for example, churning. That involves a broker, excessively trading a client's account to generate commissions, regardless of whether it actually benefits the client or not.
So it's all about making money for themselves.
Yeah, it's profiting from the volume of trades rather than, the client's actual investment goal.
That's so sneaky. Okay, what about, quote, stuffing? That sounds, I don't know, almost chaotic.
It kind of is. Quote, stuffing involves flooding the market with a huge number of orders, often fake or intended to be canceled, just to create confusion, disrupt that normal trading activity.
So it's like injecting noise into the system.
Exactly, making it really difficult for legitimate investors to kind of get a clear picture of what's happening.
And then there's front running. That sounds kind of like, I don't know, cutting in line, but in like a financial sense.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Front running happens when a trader, They know about a large pending order, something
Mhm.
that's likely to, move the market. And they place their own order ahead of it to capitalize on that anticipated price change.
So they're profiting from information that's not public yet.
Exactly. Giving them, obviously, a totally unfair advantage.
Wow. So even though these tactics, like the churning, the quote stuffing, the front running,
Yeah.
they're less, I don't know, visible than something like a pump and dump, they're still a serious threat.
Absolutely. They really highlight the importance of regulatory oversight and, strong enforcement mechanisms to ensure a level playing field.
Right. So it's not just about having the rules, it's about actually enforcing them.
Exactly.
Okay. So we've talked about pump and dumps, bear raids, now these like more insidery tactics. But our sources also talk about wash trading. This one is all about creating an illusion, right?
Right. So wash trading, it's this deceptive practice
Mm-hmm.
where someone, or maybe a group, they buy and sell the same stock at the same time, simultaneously,
Wait, what? But why?
because it creates this false impression of high trading volume and liquidity, making the stock seem way more attractive to other investors.
Ah, so it's like creating this fake buzz.
Exactly, like everyone's suddenly interested in this stock, when it's really just one person or a small group pulling the strings.
So sneaky.
Yeah, the goal is to lure in these unsuspecting investors, get them to buy the stock based on this, artificially inflated activity, which then leads to price increases that benefit the manipulator.
So we've covered tactics that manipulate perception, pumping up prices, driving them down, creating fake volume. But what about when the manipulation goes even deeper, like to the very heart of a company's financial information?
Right, that's where falsified financials come in. This goes beyond just, playing the market. This is straight up fraud.
Whoa!
We're talking about companies deliberately misrepresenting their financial health,
To deceive investors.
like cooking the books, creating fake revenue streams,
Yeah.
hiding losses.
Exactly. Building a house of cards that's, bound to collapse.
And when that happens, the fallout can be catastrophic. Think of the Enron scandal, a prime example of how falsified financials can lead to massive financial losses, destroy investor confidence, and even have these severe repercussions for the entire economy.
It's kind of terrifying to think about the scale of the damage that these practices can cause.
It really underscores how important regulatory frameworks are and strong enforcement mechanisms to deter this kind of behavior and ultimately protect investors.
So let's talk about those safeguards then. Are there actual laws specifically designed to combat stock manipulation?
Absolutely. Both the U.S. and the EU have established pretty robust legal frameworks to address this issue.
Okay, that's good to know.
So in the U.S., you have the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. That's really the bedrock of anti-manipulation regulations.
And I imagine it has some teeth.
Oh, it certainly does. One of the key provisions there is Rule 10b-5, which is this kind of broad catch-all. It prohibits any deceptive or manipulative practices related to buying or selling securities.
So it casts a wide net, like trying to catch any scheme designed to mislead investors.
Precisely. And on the European side, we have the market abuse regulation, which is, similar to the SEC's regulations. It aims to prevent both insider trading and market manipulation.
Sounds like both regions are taking this seriously.
Absolutely. And it's not just about creating laws, it's about enforcement. The penalties for engaging in stock manipulation, they can be quite severe.
Like what kind of consequences are we talking?
Well, penalties can range from substantial fines to imprisonment and even permanent bans from working in the securities industry.
So the message is clear, don't mess around with the market.
Exactly. The goal is to deter this behavior, protect the integrity of the entire financial system. Because when someone engages in these illegal activities, they're not just harming themselves, they're harming the entire financial ecosystem.
Right, it has ripple effects. Okay, so we've talked about the tactics, the
Yeah.
laws, the penalties, but let's bring this home for our listener. What are the key takeaways here?
I think first and foremost, awareness is paramount. Stock manipulation is a lot more prevalent than many people realize. Understanding these various forms can help you become a more discerning investor.
Yeah, it's like having a toolkit for spotting red flags.
Yeah.
And avoiding potential pitfalls.
Exactly. Secondly, thorough research. Don't just rely on, social media hype or unsubstantiated claims. Really delve into a company's financials, understand their business model, and look for any inconsistencies or warning signs.
So it's about being proactive.
Exactly. And finally, diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Spread your investments across different asset classes, different industries, different geographic regions. This can help mitigate your risk if one investment doesn't perform as well as you hoped.
So a balanced portfolio is key, managing risk. not becoming overly reliant on any single investment.
Precisely. And remember, there are resources out there to help you. The SEC website, for instance, provides a ton of information on investor protection, including alerts about potential scams and educational materials on various investment topics.
It sounds like knowledge is truly power in this arena. The more informed you are, the better equipped you'll be to navigate the market and make those, sound investment decisions.
Exactly. But there's another layer to this, I think. Beyond individual investors protecting themselves, what about the broader kind of systemic issues?
Yeah, that's a great point. We focused on, I guess, the bad guys, the manipulators, but what about the role of regulators
Right.
and the system itself in preventing this kind of behavior?
That's a crucial question. Because while regulations and enforcement are vital, it's always a challenge to stay ahead of increasingly sophisticated tactics, especially with the rapid evolution of technology and the rise of algorithmic trading.
Right, so it's like an ongoing battle. Are regulators really equipped to handle the speed and complexity of, modern market manipulation?
It's a valid concern. There's definitely a need for continuous adaptation and innovation in regulatory approaches, along with, sufficient resources
Yeah.
to effectively monitor this vast, ever-changing financial landscape.
It's a big job.
It is.
And I imagine it's not just about reacting to manipulation after it happens. It's also about fostering a culture of ethical behavior and transparency
Yeah.
within the financial industry itself.
Absolutely. That involves promoting ethical conduct, encouraging whistleblowing, and ensuring accountability at all levels.
So it's a multifaceted challenge that requires a coordinated effort from regulators, industry participants, and investors alike.
Precisely. And maybe it also involves rethinking our relationship with the market as a whole. Do we see it solely as a vehicle for personal gain? Or do we acknowledge its broader role in society and the importance of maintaining its integrity for the collective good?
That's a really thought-provoking question. It seems like this goes way beyond just, dollars and cents.
It really does.
It's about trust, ethics, and the overall health of our financial system. It's pretty amazing how these manipulators, exploit these, subtle advantages. It reminds me of that scene in The Wolf of Wall Street, where they're talking about penny stocks, and it all just felt so chaotic, ripe for, exploitation. Speaking of misleading tactics, what about wash trading? Our sources say it's all about creating an illusion.
Yeah, so wash trading, it's this practice, right, where an individual or a group, they buy and sell the same stock, but they do it at the same time, simultaneously.
Wait, so they're buying and selling to themselves?
Essentially, yeah.
But what's the point of that?
Well, it creates this artificial impression of high trading volume and liquidity, so the stock looks way more attractive to other investors.
Ah, I see. It's like they're creating this fake buzz around a stock, making it seem like everyone's interested when really it's just like one person or small group kind of pulling the strings.
Exactly. They're trying to lure in those unsuspecting investors, get them to buy the stock based on this, artificially inflated activity, which then leads to price increases that benefit, obviously, the manipulator.
Okay, so we've covered tactics that manipulate perception, right? Pumping up prices, driving them down, creating fake volume. But what about when the manipulation goes even deeper, to the very heart of a company's financial information?
Right. That's where we get into falsified financials. This goes way beyond just, playing the market. This is outright fraud.
Well, okay, so this is serious stuff.
Yeah, very serious.
Yeah.
We're talking about companies deliberately misrepresenting their financial health to deceive investors.
So cooking the books, creating fake revenue streams, hiding losses.
Exactly. It's like building a house of cards. It's bound to collapse eventually.
And when that happens, I imagine.
The fallout can be catastrophic. Prime example of this is the Enron scandal. Falsified financials led to massive financial losses, destroyed investor confidence, and it had severe repercussions for the overall economy.
It's scary to think about, honestly, the scale of the damage.
It really highlights the need for strong regulatory frameworks and really effective enforcement mechanisms to deter this kind of behavior and protect investors.
So let's talk about those safeguards. Are there laws in place specifically to combat stock manipulation?
Absolutely. Both the U.S. and the EU have established really robust legal frameworks to address this issue.
Okay, that's good to hear.
So in the U.S., you have the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. That's kind of the foundation of anti-manipulation regulations.
And I'm guessing it has some teeth.
Oh, it definitely does. One of the key provisions is Rule 10b-5, which is this broad kind of catch-all rule It prohibits any deceptive or manipulative practices related to buying or selling securities.
So it's designed to catch any scheme that tries to mislead investors.
Exactly. And in the EU, there's the market abuse regulation. It's similar to the SEC's regulations. Aims to prevent both insider trading and market manipulation.
It sounds like both regions are taking this pretty seriously.
They are. And it's not just about creating laws, it's about enforcement. The penalties for engaging in stock manipulation can be pretty severe.
What kind of consequences are we talking about?
Well, you're looking at potentially substantial fines, imprisonment, and even permanent bans from working in the securities industry.
Wow, so the message is pretty clear. If you manipulate the market, you're going to face serious consequences.
Exactly. The goal is to deter this behavior,
Yeah.
protect the integrity of the whole financial system. Because when someone engages in these activities, they're not just harming themselves, they're harming the entire financial ecosystem.
Right, it has ripple effects.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the tactics, the laws, the penalties, but let's bring this all home for our listeners. What are the key takeaways here?
Well, I think the most important thing is awareness. Stock manipulation is more common than people realize. Understanding the different forms it can take can help you become a more discerning investor.
So it's about being able to spot those red flags.
Exactly. The second thing is research. Don't just rely on social media hype or, unsubstantiated claims. Do your due diligence. Look into a company's financials. Understand their business model. Look for any inconsistencies, any warning signs.
So be proactive. Don't just take things at face value.
Exactly. And finally, diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Spread your investments across different asset classes, different industries, different geographic regions. This can help mitigate your risk if one investment doesn't perform as well as you hoped.
Right, so a balanced portfolio is key.
Absolutely. And remember, there are resources out there to help. The SEC website, for example, is a great starting point. You have a lot of information on investor protection, alerts about potential scams, and educational materials on various investment topics.
It sounds like knowledge is really power in this arena. The more you know, the better.
Absolutely.
But, we've focused a lot on the manipulators themselves. What about the role of regulators and the system itself in preventing this kind of behavior?
That's a great question, and it's a critical one. Regulations and enforcement are essential, but it's a constant challenge to stay ahead of these increasingly sophisticated tactics, especially with the rapid evolution of technology and the rise of algorithmic trading.
So it's an ongoing arms race.
In a way, yes.
Are regulators even equipped to handle this, like the speed and the complexity of modern market manipulation?
It's a valid concern. There's definitely a need for continuous adaptation and innovation in regulatory approaches, and, of course, sufficient resources to effectively monitor this vast and ever-changing financial landscape.
Right, it's a big job. And I imagine it's not just about reacting to manipulation after it happens. It's about fostering a culture of ethical behavior and transparency within the financial industry itself.
Absolutely. It's about promoting ethical conduct, encouraging whistleblowers to come forward, and ensuring accountability at all levels.
So it's a multifaceted challenge.
It is.
It requires a coordinated effort from regulators, industry participants, and investors alike.
Exactly. And maybe it also requires us to rethink our relationship with the market as a whole. Do we see it solely as a vehicle for personal gain? Or do we acknowledge its broader role in society and the importance of maintaining its integrity for the collective good?
That's a really interesting point. It seems like this goes beyond just, dollars and cents.
It really does.
It's about trust, ethics, and the overall health of our financial system.
Absolutely.
It's like, where does personal responsibility end and systemic protection begin?
Right? It's a complex issue.
It makes you think.
It does.
It's really eye-opening, isn't it? This
Yeah.
whole hidden world operating just beneath the surface of the stock market.
It is, yeah. It really underscores the importance of being an informed investor.
Right, and vigilant. So, as we wrap up our deep dive into stock manipulation, any final thoughts for our listeners out there? What can they do to protect themselves in this complex landscape?
I think the key takeaways are skepticism, research, and diversification.
Okay, let's break those down a bit. When you say skepticism, what do you mean?
Well, approach investment opportunities with a healthy dose of skepticism, especially those that seem too good to be true. Don't get swept up in the hype or promises of, quick riches. Remember, if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
So don't just jump on the bandwagon. Take a step back, ask some critical questions.
Exactly. And that leads into the next point. Research. Do your due diligence. Thoroughly investigate any company before you invest your hard-earned money. Don't just look at the headlines or marketing materials. Really delve into their financial statements, understand their business model, assess their track records.
So it's about being proactive, informed, not just taking someone else's word for it.
Precisely. And then finally, diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, as they say. Spread your investments across different asset classes, industries, geographic regions. This can help mitigate your risk if one investment doesn't perform as well as you hoped.
Right, so a balanced portfolio.
Exactly. It's all about managing risk.
And not becoming overly reliant on any single investment.
That's right. And remember, there are resources out there to help you. We mentioned the SEC website earlier. That's a great place to start for investor education and protection.
And, if something seems suspicious, don't hesitate to report it.
Absolutely. Reporting suspicious activity can help regulators identify and investigate potential wrongdoing. It's crucial for maintaining market integrity.
So this has been a really, I think, eye-opening deep dive. We explored the kind of dark underbelly of the financial world, uncovered these tactics of manipulation, examined the legal and ethical implications.
It's been fascinating, yeah. And hopefully our listeners feel more empowered now to navigate the complexities of the stock market, make informed investment decisions.
Ooh, to our listeners out there, remember, knowledge is power. The more you understand about how markets work, the good and the bad, the better equipped you'll be to protect yourself and achieve your financial goals.
Stay informed, stay vigilant, and keep learning.
That's it for our deep dive into stock manipulation. Thanks for joining us.